Good morning. Ring the bell. It's another round in crypto boxing. You know, it's the National Trust Charter for Crypto is here, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. A crypto payments charter is here. National Trust Charter from Brian Brooks is now available for crypto companies that want to apply for a banking license on a national scale. You know, this really comes down to regulation versus legislation. Let's go ahead and roll that beautiful intro and get into this.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at @BackupBradley above at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. So shout out to Michael Val, 5 Links, Jesus Tejero, Bond Crypt. I mean, everybody who sends information. I cannot name all of you in one shot, but you guys are so amazing and I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's start with the light news, which is really, I think, some big news from Michael Val, 5 Links. He says, who knew? I didn't. But thank you, Michael. Kroger to begin offering BTC rewards to everyday customers. Let me ask you a question. It's a pretty simple question. I mean, you're going to the grocery store, you're getting your stuff, and you start to see that there's a rewards program that pays you Bitcoin. How would you have liked to have been a part of that for the last 6 months or so? And find out that your Bitcoin's going to 18,000. That doesn't mean you'd have a whole Bitcoin. That's a lot of shopping. But the point is, not only are you getting rewards points, those points are accruing, right? They're accruing in value. So that, to me, is a pretty exciting thing. And when that catches fire, I think it's going to catch big fire. That's going to be huge. Let's look at the price this morning. Right now, taking a little bit of breath. We were at 30 cents all day yesterday and last night. And we see that we pull back to 29 cents this morning. You know, every market takes a breath. One thing I did want to bring up here while we're talking about this is that here domestically in the States, Bitcoin's doing well. It's over 18,000 right now and holding strong. But one thing I did want to bring up is that, remember, we've made a correlation. Cryptopolis has told us there's a huge correlation between the dollar strength index and crypto in general. We need to keep that in mind, I think, because as we move forward domestically here in the United States, depending which way they get done with this election process, because it's a constitutional process and we have to wait for that to be done, doesn't matter if you're right or if you're left. The news doesn't anoint presidents. I mean, they can try, but the process is a constitutional process. So, and everybody's got a right to dispute it. So no matter how you feel, we got to wait for the process to go through it in its entirety so we can find out exactly where this ends up. If you're old enough like I am, and I hate to admit it, but I remember the Bush-Gore campaign and election, and that had ended in something similar, not quite as big as this, obviously, but nevertheless, it was still a disputed election, and there was a process that went on after. So when we get the official word on this, I think one of the things we want to really pay attention to in this market is what is the dollar strength index say based on the final conclusion of that election. So that is something to pay attention to. So make sure you keep your head on a swivel for that. So let's look at this right here. Stephen Buldeep puts this out, and I think this is a nice time to remind everybody of this on the heels of Brad Garlinghouse on the Frank Chaparro podcast, telling everyone that central banks, in fact, have been looking at building off the open source technology of the XRP ledger. You don't say, Brad. Oh, he does say. Well, for this, it sparks the thought that for every transaction of IOU tokens issued on XRP Ledger, a small amount of XRP is burned. If that's true, which it is, if a central bank chooses the XRP Ledger to issue CBDC, then they need to hold XRP in reserves to facilitate network fees. That is absolutely true. So this, compounded by all the major central banks of the world and the amount of money that they would be handling in flows, really ends up locking up a whole bunch of XRP. Come on in. Something to keep a note of right there. Did want to remind everybody this morning, we are over $500 billion in market cap totally right now in the crypto space. Let's take a look at it. Here it is right here. 506 billion plus. We are literally over $500 billion at this point. Now that is quite a growth spurt. One thing I will say here is that I can't look at this and then think to myself, what does this market look like when it has 10, 20, $50 trillion in this space as a whole collectively? Because you compound that idea, looking ahead, thinking, wow, 10, 20, $50 trillion in this market, and you try to really wrap your head around it, well, add this component into it too. Remember what Brad Garlinghouse, when he said approximately 90% or 90% of all cryptos are going to go away. He might have even said 99%. But whatever it is, imagine that many cryptos going away, and then imagine 20, 40, $50 trillion in this space with just 50 or 60 actual cryptos in this space. Come on in. Now, that's quite a picture at my house. Okay, keep this thing moving. And just to show you how the market is really changing its position, and things are moving heavily right now. And you can see the institutional posturing, which has really been in play, but it's starting to be revealed and just be public knowledge. Skybridge Capital, a $9.2 billion investment firm founded by the former vice president of Goldman Sachs, Anthony Scaramucci, is looking to invest in cryptocurrency filings published by the SEC on Friday and Monday show. So this is it just keeps getting bigger. $9.2 billion investment firm. Jeez, that's a lot of dough. On Tuesday, Michael Val 5 Links, November 17th, the day that Bitcoin price broke the $17,000 level, Mexican billionaire Ricardo Salinas Pelagio, I can't remember, whatever. Forgive me if I'm messing it up. Ricardo said that 10% of his liquid assets are in Bitcoin. And that there is a hell of a move. I mean, look, it's a hedge. You can clearly see the position he's taken is a hedge. And, this is interesting, guys, because look, think about this, the early days, it's the high risk investment. It's the speculative investment. Well, here's a billionaire, not a millionaire, a billionaire. He's not taking it as a speculative investment. This is clearly saying that he believes that this is a hedge to his other investments. That is a shift, because that's exactly what people do with gold and metals. So let's keep it going here. UN announces biometric digital ID. This one comes from Spiro. Thank you, Spiro. UN also says they are one step closer to an internationally recognized digital travel credential. Plus, major biometrics firm partners with Canadian government for digital ID. I'm not going to play the clip here because I did go through it, and it's a really great clip. And thank you, Spiro. Appreciate you very much. But, this, I instantly go back to Pay ID or Global ID with Greg Kidd. We just had him here on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't watched that interview, please go watch that interview. I will post it in one of the suggested cards that comes down from the top, and I will post that for you guys to be able to see as the video is playing for you today. Okay, and I'll make sure it's after the 9-minute mark. Okay, Yahoo, it says here, this is huge. So controversial Federal Reserve pick Judy Shelton fails to advance in key Senate test vote. Future of nomination uncertain. Well, there's been a lot of contention with Judy because of her idea of going back to a gold standard, right? No surprise there. There really is no surprise there. But they did the test vote and she failed to pass. And I heard a couple explanations about what had happened, but I think all we need to do is pay attention to this. Regardless of the inside baseball that's going on in Congress, I'm not going to try to get down here and dispel that mess. All I'll say is that, it's a test vote, and apparently the way they positioned not voting her in, I think one of the people that actually brought her to the vote, to the floor, and I can't remember, I think it was McConnell, but if my memory serves me correctly, I was talking with Big Skinny about this, and shout out to him. He had to vote no in order to be able to have the right to bring her back for another vote at a later time. So To be continued is where we're at on that. We'll keep an eye on the gold bug. Judy Shelton, shout out to her. Trump nominates Brian Brooks for full 5-year term as U.S. Comptroller of Currency. Okay, a couple things here. Let's drop it in low one. All right, now here we are here because this is interesting. One, there has been a lot of talk about how the current administration does not like crypto. We know that the current president has even said last summer that he did not like Bitcoin and Bitcoin wasn't money. Well, I tend to agree with him. It's not money. And I think we have to pay very close attention to the fact that those words are really synonymous. Like Bitcoin is synonymous as a broad brush to describe the entire crypto space, but it's not so. We know that XRP is completely different than something like Bitcoin. And I'm not here to say one's wrong, bad or worse. My point is they're different products. They're different things. There's a difference between a car and a motorcycle, even though they both can take you to a certain place, right? So the reality here for me is a couple things. One, if he picked Brian Brooks to nominate him for a full term at the OCC, he knows exactly what Brian Brooks has been doing, and Brian Brooks has been taking care of all things when it comes to the OCC's concern. But importantly enough, he's also been an advocate in pushing forward what needs to happen to allow crypto to be able to thrive the way the early days of the internet had the opportunity to thrive. And this is where we get down to it. He can, the current administration can feel how they want about Bitcoin, but I'll tell you how they feel about Brian Brooks. They like him, and they like him a lot. Now, I won't even lean into the notion that selecting Brian Brooks is really a hint that he feels like he's going to get another 4 years as president, right? Because he's nominating who he thinks should be there while he's going to plan on. That'll all sort itself out. And wherever it goes, I have news for you. No matter how you feel about this, I think the good news for all of us as crypto holders is we win. At the end of the day, the politics can shake out however it wants to. We win because they need this more than we want it. And we want this something bad, don't we? Right? But they need it. That we've heard everybody say they need it. The IMF says they need it. The World Economic Forum says they need it. The nomination of Brian Brooks tells me the U.S. says they know they need it. So this is where we are today, right? So we're going to keep an eye on this because I feel like another thing to remember, and I'm not going to read this to you, but it's really about the nomination of Brian Brooks here in this article. What I do want to say to you is this. I want to leave you with, really round the thought out to this point. Brian Brooks in the OCC is a regulatory agency connected to the Treasury. Congress cannot stop what Brian Brooks does. Congress does not grant the authority to Brian Brooks. He doesn't need the authority of Congress to do the things that he has been doing. That's why Congress sent him a letter saying, hey, wait a minute. You're kind of doing what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah, that happens a lot because Congress is really a quagmire, right? Steeped in political posturing and all of this business that has nothing to do with advancing the technology to allow innovation to just absolutely take off and just really let the innovation decide to the world what works and what doesn't. And once you see those results, then you can legislate that. So this comes down to me as a legislation boxing match. And this is really all about regulation versus legislation. And at the end of the day, we don't need legislation, people. Ladies and gentlemen, this just in. We do not need legislation right now. What we do need is regulation. And more importantly, a regulatory sandbox like other places that have been cited by Brad Garlinghouse, like Singapore. They've got a regulatory sandbox, and other places that have been cited as well. So for me, at the end of the day, it's like this is nothing but upside for us because Brian Brooks has probably the most clear and amazing vision for how to regulate and put the right policies in place for cryptocurrency to advance without stifling innovation than anybody I've ever come across in this space. There's no question about it. So shout out to Brian Brooks. And obviously, we have just gotten a national trust charter for crypto. That's the other part to this. So now the question remains, and I've asked this a bunch of times. Ripple is the steward of the escrow releases when they come out. They rightfully so do a great job of determining how much should stay out of that escrow release and how much goes on the back end in a new contract. They have also said in Q2 that they will begin buying XRP when needed off of the exchanges, just like we do, off of the secondary market. Well, this is fascinating to me because that means Ripple clearly sees himself decoupled from XRP at this point and participate in the secondary market the way you or I or any other customer would. Ripple has also come out and said we also are going to begin beta testing lines of credit and offering lines of credit of XRP to people. These things are banking activities. And more importantly, it looks like central banking activities because I believe XRP is money. At the end of the day, I think the regulatory sandbox is the way to go. And I think that if the National Trust Charter is available now for companies that are in the payment sector or crypto that want to apply for a national banking license, maybe one of the next things we see is Ripple get a banking license because they're pursuing banking activities. And if they can get a banking charter, that would put them under the purview of the OCC, right? And at that point, it looks like we've got a regulatory sandbox. That's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below, share with somebody you know. Ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor, go into the description box, go into the comment section, check out the links that I have in there. They are trusted links to products and services that I know I needed, so I went ahead and got them, and I got them for anybody out here that needs them like you. So there may be something you want or need in there too for you. Make sure you check those out and try those products out too. So I will catch all of you on the next one. Take care.